Hey trackies, welcome back to another video here on TXD Track Time. Please remember to like the video and also subscribe to the channel. So guys, the issue is not with MVP like public perception would lead you to believe, but it's actually the J3s. Surprise, surprise, or no surprise, right? So I have been doing, a few videos speaking about the relays and my appreciation of seeing the top athletes come out. Over the last few weeks, I've been noting the clubs as well that are participating. And, for the most part, the top billion athletes are there present. However, I've noted that I'm looking and I'm like, so we're MVP there. Why am I not seeing any MVP? MVP, hey guys, step up, step into it. We have to get things going because realistically speaking, I don't know a relay team that's formulated without, MVP athletes. So we need you all present, right? So someone actually came in my comment section from MVP and was like, hey, it's not MVP, right? And interestingly, a supporter of TXT Track Time sent me this article. She knows herself and didn't get around to doing it on Monday morning because I already had, other things, set out, to post on the channel. But I'm going to be talking about it now, right? And, this one is an actual doozy. And I'm thinking to myself, why oh why in 2025, especially after, witnessing the failures of 2024, are we still here, right? But again, I'm not really surprised, right? And I'll tell you more about my opinions, as I go. So I'm going to, read from this article. It's pretty long, from the Jamaica Observer. And yeah, we'll go along, right? So it says, awaiting the baton. MVP awaits correspondence as J3S contacts stakeholders to prevent a second relay qualification debacle, right? So apparently J3S is contacting stakeholders, and one of the biggest stakeholders in Jamaica, the MVP, apparently has not received any correspondence. Like, really? Really? Are we really doing this right now, J3? This doesn't make any sense. Like, over the years, again, I can't think of a team that was set up. I'm talking about relays, whether it be from 4x1, up to 4x4, that doesn't have, MVP athletes, whether we're talking about males or from a female perspective. Like, how can this be happening and there's no correspondence with MVP? Makes no sense to me. But let's go. Let's listen to what this article is saying, right? So the J3s, or the Jamaica Administrative Association, says it acknowledges the importance of collaboration between itself and stakeholders to ensure no more mistakes are made regarding qualifying relay teams for major global track meets. But one club says it has not received any correspondence regarding this season's plans. Now, from what I gather, because I did read the article before, they're speaking more about the 4x4. But honestly, just overall, I'm thinking you're clearly not thinking about anything relating to relays and Jamaica and our success going forward. If again MVP has not received any correspondence, right? But anyway, let's keep reading. With the World Athletics Championship set to take place in Tokyo, Japan this September, the J3s will hope to ensure all its relay teams have put in the groundwork to qualify for the event. So here it says all the relay teams, right? So not only 4x4, though the article really zones in and focuses on and hones in on the 4x4, because I suppose that was the biggest issue last year where, for the first time in, umpteen years, I believe 1948 was the last time, right? We haven't had, representation from the men in the 4x4. Crazy, right? So that being said, let's continue reading, right? So this is to avoid another situation like last year when it had to create a special relay race on the deadline day to achieve the qualifying standard for the Paris Olympic Games in an attempt to have Jamaica qualify for the men's 4x4 relay event. Jamaica's men did not qualify in the men's 4x4 relay for the first time since 1948, as none of the three competing Jamaican teams in the 4-team race could go below 2 minutes 59.12 seconds. I'm not sure why they have minutes here. Clocked by Zambia, who took the 16th and final spot at the Paris Olympic Games last summer. The fastest of the three Jamaican teams in the race, the gold team consisting of Raheem Hales, Sean Bailey, Malik James King, and Tyrese Roden clocked 2 minutes 59.87 seconds. I actually don't believe that this was the race done on the deadline, because the race done on the deadline, I vividly remember, did not have Sean Bailey, and it was a big thing because we were thinking that, hey, if the top athletes in the 400 meters, which, if y'all remember, the J3s had actually cut the rounds short. So typically you would run 3 rounds, right? At the trials, you go to the heat, the semifinal, final. The top athletes only competed in the semifinal and final, to give way or room to make sure that they'll have fresh enough legs to compete in the 4x4 that would come at the end of the championships to hopefully qualify for the Paris Olympic Games. Unfortunately, a few of the top athletes pulled out, right? Most of the top athletes pulled out and didn't run. And I remember even the athletes that ran in the actual 4x4, they were quite dissatisfied because a few of them were like, if just one of the actual man them did run fast, did run, they could have qualified. So, I mean, it was a big thing last year. So I don't think they're actually quoting the right race here, given the members that they, spoke of. But anyway, let's continue reading, right? The fallout saw the J3A scrutinize about its preparations, especially in light of disappointment at the Jamaica's performance at the World Relay Games in Nassau, Bahamas. Earlier in the year, Jamaica needed to qualify on the deadline because it failed to do so at these games. So again, we went to the World Relays first, failed there. We tried a few times. I remember was it in Trinidad, I think, or was it in Bahamas? I believe it was Bahamas. There's another meeting there. I believe this is the one that they spoke of with Tyrese Roden, Sean Bailey probably, and Malik James King, where, and Raheem Hales, where the time was 2 minutes 59.87 seconds. Somebody can correct me in the comment section, though I don't think that this is the race that was at the trials. I don't believe so. But anyway, let's go again, right? However, the J3's first vice president, Ian Forbes, says the body is being proactive this season to avoid a similar occurrence. There was a lot of talk and comments around it, but we've been pretty much collaborating with the stakeholders and we're not making any moves without consultation. Again, they keep saying that, they're making sure that they're collaborating with the stakeholders, yet MVP has not received any correspondence at all about any relays for this season. Oh my God. This is what apparently he told the Observer on February 6th. Of course, we have to come to the consensus, so we are pretty much in close contact with all relevant stakeholders to ensure that we are fully aligned and we'll be working in the best interest of Jamaica. Now, guys, this is where, I find what they're saying quite interesting, because as I said earlier on, I did read the article before, right? And the first thing that popped out to me was when they spoke of all relevant stakeholders and the mere fact that this article was zoning in on the 4x4. I started to think, is it a case where, because it was only the 4x4 men that didn't qualify, the J3s believes that MVP is not a relevant stakeholder for the men's 4x4? Is that what the case is? Well, guess what? Guess what? Over the weekend, I find this funny, right? Because they're believing that MVP probably doesn't have anybody that will be, good enough to run in the 4x4. But guess who shut them up over the weekend at the Gibson Relays? Same MVP, because Rasheen McDonald, the national record holder in the 400 meters, came out and clocked the second fastest 400 meters that Jamaican has clocked all season. Right? He at the Gibson Relays, let me make sure I get the time correctly, clocked a 45.53 seconds. That is what Rasheen ran. So, leading into this, and I'm just saying this is just my opinion, probably J3 is believing that, okay, MVP doesn't have any stakeholder in the men's 4x4, but they actually do, right? And regardless of how you feel about the situation as it relates to potentially how this race may go, you can't omit someone, that is relevantly showing, or that is showing you, that they are currently in shape and ready to go, right? So it's quite interesting, again, that they believing that MVP in my opinion, no have no stakeholder in the race or no relevant people around, they decided to just completely omit MVP. I thought that was the most ridiculous thing. And even if you subtract, the whole issue with the men, they still have women in the 4x4. And of course, there's still the big old 4x1, which we have so many issues there as well that need to be rectified. And you just decide, say, you're not going to say nothing to MVP, but no really, none at all for this season. Ridiculous. 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 But anyway, let's keep reading because I swear to you, this article is madness, right? While the observer can confirm that the J3S has contacted stakeholders, MVP track club head coach Stephen Francis says he has not received any correspondence. I don't know about my colleagues, but they haven't reached out to me, Francis told the observer. There still seems to be a lot of hesitation and people not wanting to do things differently. And this also reminds me of that very, very distasteful interview done by David Riley last year, where Stephen was, pointing out a few issues that he's, realized with the J3As and how they operate. And rather than, speaking to address exactly the points that Stephen Francis mentioned, right? No, let's just attack Stephen Francis directly. That's what he did. And everybody was sitting there wondering to themselves, like, what exactly is going on here? David didn't really address any of the issues, right? He just, decided to attack Stephen Francis himself. So I was like, this is kind of funny because y'all know I do content. And from time to time, well, not from time to time, all the while you guys don't agree with me, but you have some persons that will come on and, disagree and decide to not give any counter arguments. We're gonna knock down the place, not give any counter arguments, but say, hey, you're ugly. I'm like, okay, I don't care if you think I look like a big toe. Give me your counter argument. You know what I mean? So that was pretty much what happened there with David Riley. So as that was very distasteful, right? So it seems as though, as Stephen says here, there's a lot of hesitation and people not wanting to do things differently. And I believe him when he says they don't want to do things differently. And I'm thinking to myself, and I'm like, anyhow, God forbid, in 2025, Jamaica go to World Championships. I want to make we have egg pan with face again. All I want to need to step down. All I want to need to step down, because at this point, y'all don't serve any purpose. The athletes are already in professional clubs, right? And they're getting prepared, there. Your job is to make sure everything else around them works properly. And not even that you can do. Jesus, I don't know at this point. I don't even know. Right? So he says, of course, as I've always said, they're consulting with the wrong people because the J3 is executive. There are 16 or 17 people, none of whom know anything about senior athletics apart from Michael Frater, and I'm not sure how much power he carries there, Francis said. But what is required is consultation among people who know a lot about the preparation for the competition among the best athletes in the world. Again, I've been saying this, and a lot of you have been saying to me in the comments, hey, the people are running. And I'm like, no, I don't care about, athlete B and athlete C. I'm talking about the best athletes in the world. The best athletes in the world need to be part of whatever is going on. And here he's saying, hey, y'all need to be consulting with the people, aka me, that's preparing some of the best athletes in the world to be a part of this shindig, and you're not doing that. I wonder why, right? Now, he goes on to say, or the article goes on to say, but Swept Track Club head Akil Stewart says the J3S has contacted him and he is confident about a different outcome this season. So again, from this perspective, you can clearly see that there's consideration being made for a potential Rashawn Clark that is a part of Swept Track Club being in the 4x4. Now, as I said, this article didn't really mention the 4x1, but remember, Taekwondo Tracy is also a part of the Swept Track Club as well. So again, they're making correspondence there with this particular club. Now, in continuing, it says, I've seen circulations from the administration regarding the selection of teams, and I've not responded to them as yet, but something has come to my email, said Stewart. The thing about it is we would have learned from last year as to what we need to do, and as such, I think we will not be making that mistake again, definitely, right? So it seems as though the clubs themselves, from my understanding, are proactively thinking about what happened last season. So this actually seems less about the J3s and actually more about the clubs. So what we've been witnessing in these last few weeks, where I'm looking at Sprint Tech, right? I'm looking at even swept, dynamic speed, right? And I've been watching them over the weeks, and it seems as though this is actually something that they've been conceptualizing for themselves, where they noticed the issues last year and is like, okay, let's try to circumvent this. Let's try to get the athletes ready somewhat before we get around to, the meat and bones of it all, right? Where it's trials and, we're down to selecting who, and the athletes are, not really prepared or not qualified, right? So it seems as though it's actually not J3 is doing anything, but it's actually the clubs, based on what Okil is saying here. He saw the email, he saw a list of athletes that could potentially be a part of the whole shindig. However, he has yet to respond. He's there making sure that his athletes are ready enough to compete once they're called upon, right? So again, let's continue. Right? For Sprintec Track Club head Maurice Wilson, practice is key, as he acknowledges that Jamaica's quarter milers are not necessarily the fastest in the world over the distance. This is a long-standing discussion that I would have had with the J3As about getting the teams together, because we are running fewer relays in Jamaica than we used to, and so practice is crucial. It's interesting because when I pointed out that our top athletes are running fewer relays, take me on in the comments and say nothing no go so, right? But you hear where the actual coach for Sprintec is saying that we are actually running, fewer relays, and we actually are running fewer relays. And it's even worse when you think about the people that, when the meat and bones of it comes, we're talking about who is making the team. We not see them around nothing at all, kind of thing. And actually, I have an appreciation for him, speaking on this particular point as well, because they're up and coming athletes, right? And I've noticed that there are a few up and coming athletes from Sprint Tech as well. And if you watch the Gibson relays last weekend, you would have noticed that Sprint Tech took the win in the 4x4. And interestingly, one member from Sprint Tech was actually part of GC Foster. Now, clearly, same base, right? Because it's GC Foster straight into Sprint Tech, like you have UTech straight into MVP kind of thing, right? But what I wanted to point out is that you also want the new and coming athletes, up and coming athletes, to have an opportunity to display their skill, right? So that they can potentially be incorporated into whatever plans, exist for potentially, setting up a team, right? So there's that as well. Let's continue. So he told the Observer on Thursday, but once you get to the competitive season, it's very difficult for you to continue practicing. So it's going to require some intercession from the management of the J3s with the various stakeholders for us to fix this problem. Gone are the days where we have, 4 extremely fast males or females. We still do have them, but there is much more need to get the team to perform at the highest level. Wilson says he hopes a resolution will be found sometime this week. All right. I agree and I disagree somewhat with what he said there. Funny enough, with me saying I disagree. I don't think it's a case where Jamaica has, slower athletes, though you may not see as many sub 45s, or, for the females as well. Sharika has graduated to the 100, so we don't really have a strong team there. But if you notice, we still have Nikisha Price that's coming up now. We still have the Stacians, we still have the Cherokees, right? So there are young fresh blood that are coming out that I believe are very fast. The problem is that we're having, which is what Jamaica seems to fail to realize, is that the rest of the world is actually catching up. So gone are the days where it was only Jamaica, USA, Great Britain, right? That was pretty much all you had to think about. So Jamaica was probably guaranteed a medal. As long as you don't drop the button, you're guaranteed a medal. You know what I mean? Yes, there were years where Trinidad was awesome in the 4x4, Bahamas, and so forth. But for the most part, consistently, right, you've always had 3 countries that you could say, off the top of your head, that always had a team, a solid team. And that was USA, that was Great Britain, and that was Jamaica, right? So Jamaica, as long as nothing ever go wrong, we're always going to be in the medals. The problem is now you have Let's see little bogus country, right? The name is slipping me right now. Botswana, right? You have the Netherlands, you have all of these other countries that are now coming up. A lot of African countries are coming up. Nigeria, right? You still have, the whole host of countries from Europe that also from time to time, they can find a really strong team, whether it be the Frances, the Spains, right? So again, I don't think it's a case where Jamaica is slower, though I do think our men are struggling, in recent times a little bit. But I just think the rest of the world is catching up. I think the rest of the world is catching up, and we need to also make sure, say, our athletes, whether we're bringing through fresh blood, right, that can step up to the plate, so that we can compete well. I think that's a real issue, right? Anyway, let's continue. Oh, that's it. That's the end of the article, right? So yeah, check is that's what was said here. I think the J3s need to get it together. Wilson says they're hoping to, get a resolution by this week, right? So I'm hoping that since this article has come out, they've made the effort to reach out to the MVP track club. We don't want the shenanigans. We don't want the childish behaviors, the spiteful things happening. Oh, because you said XYZ, I'm not going to reach out to you. You know, one thing in my mind when it comes to being a good leader, which the J3s are, not really exhibiting any leadership at this particular point, but you clearly need strong communication skills, and I don't believe that they're displaying any of that at all. I see a lot of childish behaviors happening. Um, the spiteful thing happening as well. Clearly not thinking about the best interest of Jamaican athletics, and you say all these things when you're speaking to media, but are you actually doing these things in the background? And that's to me what is important, and clearly not. I don't believe in any way, shape, or form, even if MVP right now doesn't have anybody in the 400 meters from a male perspective, because clearly, as I said, that seems to be the focus of this article, right? They still need to be a part of the talks, right? They're still a stakeholder, because you never know who is going to be the next big thing coming up and where this athlete is going to come from, right? And you always have to, keep one eye open for the possibilities, right? So, it's funny that Rashid McDonald over the weekend displayed that he's fit and ready to go. So what's going to be their excuse for not contacting MVP? Oh, they didn't believe he was relevant. I mean, that's nonsense. I believe every club in Jamaica needs to be notified, right? As long as you're training professional athletes, whether or not your athletes will be a part of the conversation at the end of the day is a whole different story, right? But I believe that correspondence needs to be made with all these stakeholders, and not just the ones you deem relevant. And I think that's the takeaway here. You deem a certain set relevant and some another set not relevant, and then vap egg upon your face. Egg upon your face right now. What you gonna do? What you going to do, J3s? Anyway, Trackies, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like the video, of course, and subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.